This is please. Thank you. Could you please introduce?
Yes.
Please?
So briefly I can say there are 5 guests today in this panel, and I have requested them, they are all from London.
Same place?
Yes, from London, from different areas.
All right.
These 3 men, they all belong to legal profession, and that lady on the right side was in TV industry, and the other one is analyst. They are going to introduce themselves in detail before their first question.
Your Holiness, my name is Leslie Blake. I'm a law teacher. My question
At the
is
school?
at a university
University
in
of
Surrey, the University of Surrey.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, will we just go through introduction first, or before every question you introduce yourself? I mean, the one who asked the question, will he introduce or she introduce herself before asking the question, or shall we go around introducing the guests? What do you suggest?
I think it might be best to do it the second way, everybody to introduce themselves now.
To begin with,
Yes.
and then there will be no introduction needed after that.
Yes.
Right.
I'm John Pointing. I'm a lawyer as well and practice as a barrister
Best. Where do you practice?
in Gray's Inn.
My name is John Thompson. I'm a solicitor in practice.
You seem to be the youngest of these 3.
It just seems that way.
Please.
Your Holiness, I'm Gretel Plumley, and I live in the City of London. Most of my working life I've been connected to the production side of television, behind the scenes. Most of my
By the
life.
City of London, you mean Holborn area and...
By St Paul's.
Right. Please.
Good morning, sir. I'm Stephanie Willett. I'm an analyst in a market research agency. I actually live in Epsom, just outside London.
Good. You're most welcome. Thank you so much for finding time to come here, all the way from the different places. And I'm really honored and deeply appreciate your kindness.
We are very honoured to be invited, Your Holiness.
Shall we begin?
Yes. Well, my question was actually about the nature of religious law. Many religious people, Islam obviously, and other faiths too, sometimes take the view that the law of the state should also be the law of their religion. And one hears about this with Islam, of course. I'm wondering whether the Ahmadi movement takes that view, or whether the Ahmadi movement recognises a division between the law of the state and the law of the faithful.
I believe personally, as well as from my study of the Quran, that there should be no divide between religious laws and state laws in principle. But unfortunately, this division exists. And particularly recently in Israel, this question was highlighted, where the religious laws were extremely obnoxious against the common verdict of human morality. So I'll answer you this question in the light of the principal verses of the Holy Quran on this subject. According to the Quran, the law must be based on absolute justice. So if absolute justice is universal as we know it is, then there should be any divide between religious laws and man-made laws as far as human civil activities are concerned, civic activities are concerned. Those laws which deal with relation between man and God, they do not apply to states. They are non-political laws, and their states have no right to interfere, and they can better not interfere, because they will open up a Pandora's box by interfering in every religion's laws which relate to man's relationship with God. So I think in the light of this answer, your query has been answered. But if you have any specific area of this question, you may raise it.
Well, Your Holiness, only one, I think. We're particularly thinking in England at the moment of a prosecution, I think, in Pakistan of a man for what we would call sexual immorality.
Yes.
I think he went with a woman that he wasn't married to, and obviously against the wishes of her parents. I wonder whether this is categorised as civic wrong, or whether it relates to purely his relationship with God, which the state shouldn't interfere with.
This issue is, I think, halfway between the two. Because part of sexual immorality leads to deception in society. If you agree with that principle, that society should be orderly and homes should be protected from such influences which ultimately shatter homes and destroy the whole society. If you agree with that principle, then universally the same laws which prevent immorality in Pakistan should also be in England or in America, because here the basis is not religious basis. The basis is the concept of a society, how we may protect the society from tumbling down and being shattered into pieces, so that ultimately there are no homes worth living. There is no peace, and all the diseases which are sex related also are produced as a result of this promiscuous behavior. So this question is not as simple as it appears to be in the beginning. So according to Islam, first of all, the concept of morality must be understood. If that concept is universal, then it does not make any difference whether it happens in Pakistan or elsewhere. But unfortunately, even in Pakistan, it is not applicable in every sphere of society. And it is a mockery of justice when you come close to how this justice is applied. So these are the problems which agitate every thinking man's mind, but these problems appear differently in different countries, but they do exist everywhere. So you should join your heads together and decide whether England should return to the basic concept of morality, which also covers sexual relationship. If you are not interested in that, then you have a right to criticize others who do that, but then you are bound to go down the drain in the social peace which I have referred to.
Your Holiness, I also have a complicated question,
Yes.
related in some way.
The lawyers should have complicated
Yes, it's an occupational hazard.
Yes.
I'd like to ask you your views on fundamentalism, and I'm not restricting that purely to Muslim fundamentalism, because
And fundamentalism.
yes, I mean quite. I mean Christian fundamentalism and Judaic fundamentalism and Hindu.
Fundamentalism, as it is understood today, is absolutely wrong.
Yes.
Whatever fundamentalism you refer to, with the understanding of the definition of fundamentalism which is ordinarily understood in the world today. I believe that fundamentalism is highly important, but with a different definition. Fundamentals of every religion are the basic teachings of their scriptures and the basic conduct of their prophets, which had the religion in the beginning, like Jesus Christ had Christianity, like Moses has Judaism, etc., etc. Now, if fundamentalism means this, to understand Torah as a gospel which was revealed to Moses, then these rabbis just disappear. They have nothing to do with it. every man with any common sense should directly have access to the gospel and interpret it as he pleases. But it is his responsibility to support his interpretation with rationality. Now here, my belief must be clearly understood that I believe that any divine teachings which is devoid of rationality is not a divine teaching, or there is no God. So rationality, as universally understood, must support your inferences of divine teachings. Apparently, it may contradict your sensibilities, but the teaching basically should respond to your application of rationality in a manner that the two things become one. Whatever is the dictate of rationality should also be the dictate of a religion, not naming any religion. This, I believe, is fundamentalism. Any other definition of fundamentalism will take you away from the foundations of religion. And that is unfortunately what is happening today.
Yes.
Look at Pakistan, look at anywhere in the world, England, etc., etc. What fundamentalism is working in Ireland is not Christianity. It is farthest from the conduct of Jesus Christ. And yet in the name of Jesus Christ, they are destroying his religion. So fundamentalism is always at odds with the foundations of religion. This is my study, which I can prove in application to the facts as we find occurring in different parts of the world. So this fundamentalism, as you refer to, takes you back to the medieval ages only, not to the sources of religion. So the medieval behavior of Christianity will be found very offensive. And these people find their guidance from that medieval ages, not from Christ. Similarly, it applies to all religions, Muslims, Hindus, etc., etc. Their founders are found to be decent people, thorough gentlemen, who could not offend the decency in man in any way. But what is fundamentalism? It's a crime against decency. It's an offense against human values. So as such, the fundamentalism as we found in operation today must be rejected altogether. Not as word of God, but as word and act of men. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I was present at the annual meeting you had at Islamabad last year, and I heard your answer to a question concerning euthanasia.
Yes.
And you stated that one human hasn't got the right to decide when another human came to the end of their useful existence. And I immediately thought about the position of animals in our society, and I wondered what your views were concerning the rights of humans to take the life of animals, whether they be sick or whether they be healthy.
Now this question requires an overall view of life itself and the philosophy of evolution. Right from the start, what you describe as euthanasia is violated. In the entire animal kingdom, low forms of life are food for higher forms of life. And there is no exception found in the entire world of evolutionary kingdom. So why should there be a different attitude when you reach the stage of man? Why should not man be provided the same right of finding his subsidy from the low forms of life, whether it's vegetative or animal kingdom? Wherever it is possible for man to survive on the sacrifice of lower animals who are created apparently for his consumption. And this can also lead to the question of God having displayed a design in his creation. Every animal cannot eat every other animal. There are specific species which he consumes and none other, which shows that God has sustained nature and its ecosystem in it with specific natural laws which are not violated. A lion eats flesh, but not that of a pig. Lion eats flesh, but he is limited in his choice and does not look elsewhere. So this is the laws of nature governing your instincts, which if you study them in depth, bring them to your focus of attention, then you begin to see the laws working behind them. And as such, humans are also provided with certain animals by God, which humans can consume or may not consume. They may live on vegetation alone, if they so like, because they have the freedom of choice. And they may also consume such animals which are fit for their consumption. And we know them. Out of birds, we do not hunt the birds of prey. We hunt some innocent birds which are also victims of birds of prey. So it's a long subject which should be analyzed in detail, but here it's not time for me to illustrate it fully. But this should be understood very clearly, that because man is given choice, so he has this option of being carnivorous or being vegetarian. Neither is essential. If he chooses to be a vegetarian, then no religion can object against him. If out of his sense of euthanasia he doesn't slaughter animals and so on, he may go vegetarian. But he should also realize that with every vegetable he eats, there are billions of living things which he eats them along with that vegetation, who are a form of life. You may consider them to be very low forms of life. So the distance between that low form of life and man is bigger, but it can be closer as well. If the principle is violated, then why not a closer distance? Now this has been displayed in nature by God in a very strange way, where you have choice to be carnivorous or not to be carnivorous. Among all carnivorous plants, you find this choice, because they are fully supported for their survival by photosynthesis, and they do not have to eat animals. So they have chosen to eat animals to supplement their diet, and at the same time they are vegetarians, in the sense that photosynthesis provides everything for them which is necessary for their existence. So nature has fantastic examples before man to understand the ways of God, and this I think should satisfy your query, should it?
Yes,
Thank you.
Your Holiness, my question is also linked to life after death, and it's I'd really like to ask a question from an Islamic faith point of view of what happens to an individual after they die, but before the Day of Judgment actually arrives.
Yes. First of all, it should be very clearly understood that among humans, the mind has advanced to a degree between human mind and animal mind, is immense. It's so vast that you cannot realize how big the distance is. Humans can think of the universe and such concepts as deal with the time, space, the warping of time, the black holes and this and that. It's impossible for any animal to think of such things. That positively shows that our evolution is towards God, because ultimately these concepts lead to God, and it is a prerequisite for your understanding the existence of God to understand the nature He has created. And as you delve deeper into the philosophy of existence, you come closer to God. This is a claim, but I can prove this claim with reference to many examples in nature and philosophy and sciences, etc., etc. But for the time being, let it suffice. When this is your observation as well as mine, that you are different from animals in visualizing the existence of spiritual things, which are not always related to matter. The scientists have proved the fact that the existence can be not only in 4 planes, but in 5, 6, 7 dimensions and more. Ordinary man cannot understand that. But scientists' brain has reached that stage that they can understand those dimensions. And with that understanding, they come closer to the understanding of the existence of God, because His dimensions are very different from our dimensions. When we try to imagine God with our dimensions, it's impossible. For instance, an animal cannot conceive the dimensions of man and the qualities of man. Forget about that. A blind man living in the same dimensions can never visualize what light is. So, if God had not created these capacities in man, there's potential in man to understand, theoretically at least, things which he cannot touch, he cannot smell, and so on and so forth, then this shows this is not without a purpose. As we understand, the message from this is that man is evolving towards God. If he is evolving towards God, why should he should be pressed into lower animals state, which is essentially wrong, and it should not have happened. We evolved from animals and moving upwards. So after death, something should happen to us which is in the same direction. Like, for instance, we should not be reborn with matter, because we have developed the concept of mind and soul while being here on earth. We are not just matter, and we are not just materialists as we believe we are. What are your emotions of happiness and anger, and your thrills at things which should not give you anything at all, thrill at all? You do skiing and you do this and that and spend sometimes millions on this hobby. But what is the thrill? If you analyze your emotions and break them down into single emotions as representative of the entire man, the combination of those emotions will make a man or a girl, a woman. I mean, by man I mean, of course, ladies as well. This is a very complicated affair, but if you ponder over this question, you will realize that we are evolving into something which animals cannot ever imagine. to exist. Their thrills are only related to their food and the climate and the sense of safety. But human players are advancing in nature. More advanced people are familiar with more advanced thrills. Less advanced people are only familiar with less advanced thrills. In Africa, if you can make a square meal a day in 24 hours, that will be the thrill which an African will experience. But if we turn to the West, that thrill is immaterial. Although it's basic. If you have shelter, if you have food of your liking and shelter of your liking, ordinarily it should prevent you from being exposed to nature. That should ordinarily be sufficient because it is ordinarily sufficient for animals. But our expenditure on food is much less than our expenditures on luxuries. What are the luxuries? They are a part of this development which continues in advanced societies. So from all that, I come to the conclusion that when we die, our material body remains behind, with nothing to do with the rebirth of the person within us. And the person within us is born exactly as he has been created within us. If you think of a gentleman who is very sensitive to others' pains and pleasures, he within himself enjoys his existence as possessing a good soul. Regardless of religion, it happens everywhere. But a vicious person is creating a hell for himself. It can be positively proved that he is preparing his soul for hell because what he has become, he had to cross so many barriers of moving in the direction of a hellish life. Every time a child begins to speak a lie, he has to cross a barrier. Nature that has not taught him lying, falsehood. It's the creation of irresponsibility. So gradually man creates a hell for himself here on this earth. When he permits his soul to move on from one offense to divine will or one offense to human decency to another offense of the same nature. And you notice among the criminals, they are not born overnight. They are a result of this continuous movement in one direction, and every act of crime is dulled after a while unless they go beyond that crime and commit a more offensive crime. They cannot get the thrill or the kick out of their crime. This is how the society is turned into a criminal society. And just external punishment here on earth does not deliver any message to them, because the crime is born within the depths of their souls, within the depths of their hearts and hidden intentions, which no legal system has a claim to see what is passing within his heart. This is why your system rejects this concept. Whenever somebody begins to read somebody's mind that he did this for that intention, you stand up in defense, irrelevant, unwanted. Nobody has the right to describe anybody's intentions. So how can you check crime? How can you obstruct the passage of crime from developing further when it is well covered by this darkness surrounding it within everybody's soul. And this darkness is what encourages the criminals, because they know that they are doing it as best as they could in a manner that no one can see this happening. If they knew that law was watching and seeing it happening like this, they would never dare to commit crime. So it is falsehood which supports them, because they say law cannot see why I did this, so they present excuses that it is a crime maybe, but I did it for this purpose. So to some degree, all criminals are supported by twisting their intentions. But what actually they are doing is they are preparing a hell within themselves, because they had to violate the principles of decency at each step. And at each step their soul or mind was distorted to a further degree. So according to the Quran, man creates his hell here on earth. If he has not created that hell, God will not delve him into a hell which will exist elsewhere in a spiritual form. So same is the case of heaven. Heaven is a quantity or a quantum which is materially non-existent, because heaven spreads the whole universe, and this is exactly what the Holy Quran says. So that shows that you will never return to your material life. Materialism is left behind as your soul passes away. According to the Holy Quran, heaven has its dimensions covering the entire universe. It is specifically mentioned. You have got this verse? Exactly in so many words that heaven transcends our concept of limited space. It covers the entire universe. Now when the Holy Prophet read this verse of the Quran, one of the companions stood up and said, "O Prophet of God, if heaven covers the whole universe, where would be the hell?" And he said, "At the same place, but you do not realize." This is a very profound answer, which indicates of the nature of heaven and also the nature of hell. They will be coexisting without crossing their path with each other. And each person will create his own hell here, which will be reflected in the afterlife. Each person will create his own heaven here, which will be reflected in the afterlife. That is why the coexistence of good people and bad people here will not interfere in the afterlife, because the dimensions are different. So it's a very complicated question you have raised, but in the short time available, I think this should suffice to make you understand the Quranic viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وسارعوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة أرضها السماوات والأرض أعدت للمتقين. This is the verse to which I referred. Translation did cover.
The translation of this verse is, "And hasten towards forgiveness from your Lord and the paradise whose value is the heavens and the earth. It is prepared for the God-fearing."
Now, the word value is the translation of which word?
Arzuha. Yes.
This is wrong.
Yes.
Ard means expanse. And if it were value, then the Holy Prophet should not have given that answer which I referred to. He to whom the Quran was revealed, he understood to be ard as expanse. Otherwise, he should have told the questioner that I'm not talking of expanse. The Holy Quran is not talking of expanse. It is talking of values. So that answer of the Holy Prophet fully supports my translation of this verse. It's not my supporting the case of the Quran, it is Quran supporting its own case. ठीक है?
Yes.
Please.
Your Holiness, I was very interested in the point you answered just now about us creating our own heaven or our own hell. Are we all given an equal chance at birth,
Yes.
or are some people almost irredeemably bad, what psychiatrists perhaps would call personality defects? And if so, what does that tell us about the will of God?
First of all, according to the Quran and according to Jesus Christ, not St. Paul, I'm talking of Jesus Christ, man is born in the image of God. That image could not be sinful. So the concept of hereditary sin is completely ruled out by Jesus Christ. And that is exactly what the Quranic teaching is. According to the Quran, every person who is born on Deen Fitrat, which means the law which governs every birth is the law that he should be given an excellent start. And that start should be in a manner that it should remind one of the attributes of God. If left alone, that child will not grow into a criminal, because attributes of God will grow in him because he is born with those attributes. This is the concept of the Quran, and this exactly, I believe, is the concept of Jesus Christ when he said every man is born in the image of God. Now, according to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why do we find so many different people, evil and this and that in the world, and so many religions? He explains it in a hadith which says that every child is born on fitrat, on nature which God has created. فَأَبَوَاهُ يُهَوِّدَانِهِ or يُنَصِّرَانِهِ or يُمَجِّسَانِهِ. This is reminiscent of what Freud said in this century, the previous century. According to this observation of the Rasulullah, the founder of Islam, every child is born innocent. It is his parents who turn him into a Jew or a Christian or belonging to all other faiths. So they are responsible for the education of the child, and the child is never left immune to the society in which he grows. As such, evil is born because he is moving away from his initial innocent start. According to this philosophy, the time-old question, the age-old question or time-old question of goodness and evil is also resolved by implication, not directly. But I have written on this subject in detail, and I think if you read that, you will agree with this proposition that God does not create evil. God is goodness, and He always creates goodness. Evil is born out of goodness as a shadow of goodness when goodness is interrupted in the way. The shadows cast may be very deep and remind you of absolute darkness of the night, or they may be graduated into many shades. So all those shades are not the creation of God. It is the creation of that something which stands in between the light of God and the person who should have received that light fully. So in nutshell, this is the philosophy of life and good and evil. And the time is short, so let's turn to the other question, please.
Your Holiness, my question, I think, follows from what my friend was asking you and your response to that. And it is this, that it would appear from some of the observations that you've made as if the sum total of evil, or the availability of evil in the world and the availability of good in the world, is they're constant, that there isn't a progression for greater good to be created in the world. The world is fixed almost in terms of the balance between good and evil. Is that what you believe, or do you think there are possibilities for...
If I understand you rightly, you may be right if my impression of what you have said is right. But let me explain again. God is good, and as being good, He could not have created evil. But God being good should have created greater opportunities for humans to evolve and go higher and higher. This could not have been done without His giving option to humans. If options were not given to humans, then they would be like ordinary animals. So it is the choice of options which earns him rewards or punishment. So this system is inevitable. Concept of humans without this system is unthinkable. Man will be reverted to his animal life if we remove this conscious decision making on the part of man. So if at every decision making he is warned from within that the decision you are going to make may be right, may be wrong, then he is responsible for his choice. And my study of human psyche and human people's behavior to different options is this, that every time we make a decision, we know that the difficult decision is better and the easy decision is wrongful or harmful for us. If you apply this question to your daily routine, you'll be amazed to find how many times you decide rightly or wrongly. So it is this decision making on your part which evolves your soul. If that is what you said, then I agree with you. If you had something else in mind, I have not understood you.
No, I understand.
Right.
Thank you.
Please.
There's been quite a growth in the MD community in the last 10 years. Are there statistics sort of relating why people have come to the movement? Is it a growth in fundamentalism?
Yes, that's right. I think the major reason for people being attracted to Ahmadi faith is that we have that element of universality about us which could not exist without universal rationality. So if you avoid fundamentalism and return to rationality, which I have described, is within man. His decision making is based on that rationality. He can never go wrong if he listens to his own inner voices. If a religion presents this view to the world, then the people begin to understand it much better. And when they compare this attitude, which is universal, to the limited attitudes of their pundits or whatever name they give to their clerics, then they begin to compare between this teaching and that teaching and understand why their religious leaders have led them wrongly. Why they were responsible for creating hatred in the name of God, why they were responsible for limiting the boundaries of their religions to their races or countries, etc., etc. So we are working for a new awakening, and that new awakening is helping us spread this religion very fast. In England, for instance, we are getting intellectuals into Ahmadiyya community because it satisfies their intellectual thirst. And I receive almost daily letters from Europeans pointing out that we received this book from someone and we heard your program question and answer session, and it appealed to us because it appealed to our nature. So we are interested in studying more. So in this way we do not create schisms within society, because what we create is a sense of internationality, a sense of universalism, which is not at odds with your British nationality as such, because all British born people have that sense of universality within them, growing from within them, so they can retain both together. This concept has compartments which may relate to Germany, England, France, but these compartments with this philosophy should not come to clash with each other. Right? Thank you. Can you frame your question within 17 seconds?
I will try. I have so many. The Messiah, do you believe in one Messiah, or do you believe that there are, throughout this time, that there are many masters who come for that particular time for those particular people?
I believe in the latter.
Right.
Thank you. And the time is over.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking a very crisp question and a short question which could be answered in a few words. And
Me? To ask you one more question?
not now because of the time.
Oh.
When I answered you,
Yes.
that was the point where time ended.
Ah. So you want me to ask it again?
I would like you to come here as many times as possible.
Yes.
I would love to extend this invitation to you, all of you.
Oh.
Whenever you can find time to come to this session or meeting me in other sessions, I love to meet the honest intellectuals who are non-prejudicial. And this is an immense pleasure to me. And this is the spiritual pleasure I was talking about. It's not a substantial food, but I enjoy it much more than substantial food. Thank you very much
Thank you.
Thank you.
for coming, and I do hope you will come again.
Thank you.
Please.